Colombia, 2 months before the presidential elections, candidates from different parties held their first debate on Tuesday, which was organized by the Externado University. The head of Russia's delegation for talks with Ukraine, Vladimir Medinsky, repeated written proposals of the Ukrainian side to ensure peace following talks between the two countries. On Tuesday, Ghana's parliament approved a new electronic transaction tax, which the government says will help raise $900 million in much-needed revenue. It was passed after the opposition minority walked out of the debate. Hi, this is From the South. I am your news anchor, Diego Martin, from the Telstar Studios in Havana. We begin with the news. In Colombia, 2 months before the presidential elections, candidates held their first debate on Tuesday, organized by the Externado University. Candidates Ingrid Betancourt, Enrique Gomez, Luis Guillermo Murillo, Sergio Fajardo's vice presidential candidate, Gustavo Petro, Luis Perez, and John Milton Rodriguez attended the meeting. The debate focused on three main topics proposed by academics and university students: the youth agenda, the fight against drug trafficking and consumption, and policies regarding gender equality. During his speech, the candidate for the historic pact, Gustavo Petro, stated that the main task of his administration would be the protection of the Colombian family in all of its forms.
The Colombian family has different forms, from the one-person family, from the single woman, of which there are 5,800,000 female families, mother heads of household, the heterosexual, the non-heterosexual. We undoubtedly protect the rights of people to be the way they want to be. That is freedom. We protect freedom.
The presidential candidate for the Green Alliance, Ingrid Betancourt, highlighted the importance of working on the leveling of salaries and pensions.
Work on wage equality, because it is very good that we women are there, but wage equality, pension equality, that is something we are going to work, and we have concrete proposals.
Meanwhile, candidate Luis Perez expressed his intention to eliminate compulsory military service and replace it with a social and environmental service.
Compulsory military service for a social service and an environmental service. And in this social and environmental service, I would include the figure of women. It seems that women have a great sensitivity in social and environmental issues and would bring a lot of contribution to the country, especially to the regions.
Moving up north to Mexico, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador informed that Navy officials involved in the case of the 43 Ayotzinapa magistrate students are being investigated. The president indicated in his regular morning conference that the Marines have already made statements to the Attorney General's office in response to the video that was presented in the report of the interdisciplinary group of independent experts, which shows that members of the Marine Corps manipulated evidence in a garbage dump where the 43 missing Normalista students were allegedly incinerated. The investigators of the interdisciplinary group stated that the authorities hid this for years and also had crucial information that could have helped to know the whereabouts of the 43 Normalista students.
Se está entregando toda la información. Se ha entregado.
Information is being delivered. It has been delivered. The file has been opened like never before, and absolutely nothing is being hidden. The instruction was given to investigate the Navy chiefs who participated in that operation, and all those who participated have already testified before the prosecution.
Gradually, the Venezuelan economy is getting back on track despite illegal sanctions from the United States and its allies. Retailers are the leaders in this new stage. The full story with our colleague Madeline Garcia.
Considered the largest neighborhood in Latin America, and right there it is also the smallest bakery.
The economy is improving, the blockade is still in place, and we are moving forward. We have been hit quite hard by the economic war of the economy. This blockade, we're doing what we can, however, we're moving forward.
It is only 24 square meters, but it is enough to develop the traditional businesses of the Herrera family as pastry chef.
Everything is getting back on track, thank God. The idea is for the country not to stop, for us to keep moving forward.
Now they will expand their business. On the upper side of the house, they are building the place to make the bread and pastries they make at home. Small businessmen have resisted the pandemic and the blockade imposed by the United States and its allies against Venezuela. They have contributed to achieving a slight growth of 4% in the private sector.
We're talking about the contribution made by different small actors, entrepreneurs, the development of the popular economies, the family economies that have created a network, and the development in this part of the recovery. I believe that what we're seeing right now is a tactical result of these joint process of a country that bets on the Venezuelan men and women to create a line of recovery for the economy and obviously for their quality of life.
Inland, even with these difficulties, the situation is improving slowly. A symptom is the reactivation of tourist sites on the national highways that connect one region with the other. Before, not a single car passed. Today, since January, there has been more movement.
We have to be patient. We have endured a lot, but we keep going step by step. We have had a rough time, but it is getting better now.
There was a crisis when there was nothing. It was horrible. Thank God we got something because there were no sales, but now at least there are. One shouts, when will it end? Because before there was nothing. They are part of a network of 60 local bakers who supply at least 6,000 families.
Madeline García, Telesur, Estado Miranda, Venezuela.
We're going to take a short break now. Please join us again after this. Hi, and welcome back to From the South. The head of Russia's delegation for talks with Ukraine repeated written proposals of the Ukrainian side to ensure peace following talks between the two countries. Vladimir Medinsky said Ukraine should proclaim itself a neutral state under international law guarantees in order to implement out-of-bloc nuclear-free status. The official said there is also an expectation for Ukraine to abandon joining military unions, deploying military bases and contingents, or holding military drills on the territory of Ukraine without an agreement of guarantor states, including the Russian Federation. He added that Ukraine asked for the final decisions between the two countries to be formalized at a meeting of heads of states.
Ukraine abandons aspiration to get Crimea and Sebastopol back through military means and states it's possible only within diplomatic negotiations. It doesn't correspond to our stance, but Ukraine formulated its approach. They don't apply to the part of Ukraine which it calls districts of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions.
Turkey's Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu announced that in the latest session of peace talks in Istanbul, Russian and Ukrainian delegations reached a consensus on some issues. Turkish high officials held a meeting with the delegations of Russia and Ukraine after the peace talks in Istanbul on Tuesday. Speaking to the press after the meeting, Cavusoglu said that mentioned talks marked the biggest step in the rapprochement between the two parties, as Kyiv and Moscow have reached a consensus and common understanding on some issues. Hinting at a possible meeting between the foreign ministers of both countries in the near future, he also noted that Turkey expects a meeting between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky with Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. Ukraine's top negotiator says enough progress has been made at talks in Turkey to resolve the conflict with Russia so as to enable a meeting between the presidents of the two countries.
Worked on today on the agreement on security guarantees of Ukraine are sufficient to announce and hold a meeting of presidents. The key to this, I emphasize again, is the ability to obtain security guarantees from the guarantor countries in order to end today's war.
On Tuesday, the leaders of the United States, Great Britain, France, and Germany urged the West not to drop its guard against Russia. The United States President Joe Biden told reporters in Washington shortly after holding a phone call with the four key Western European allies that the four leaders agreed to not let up in strong economic sanctions imposed on Moscow over its special military operation of Ukraine after Russia signaled it would scale down fighting around Kyiv and Chernihiv. The executive declared that they also will continue to provide military assistance to Ukraine.
Ukrainian military with their capacity to defend themselves.
The United States European Command Leader General Todd Walters told the United States Congress Tuesday that the U.S. will likely need to add more permanent or rotational forces in Europe in the wake of the Russian special military operation in Ukraine. The U.S. general did not give any details as to how many and when, but said the decisions will be based on what European nations do, particularly in response to the need to build 4 additional NATO battle groups, which are being set up in Hungary, Slovakia, Romania, and Bulgaria. Walters said NATO has to improve its military disposition in all quadrants and in all domains, and that there is a plan in place to do so. The crisis in Ukraine and the Western sanctions against Russia already exacerbated food prices in parts of Africa and the Middle East. In the Gaza Strip, the local population are preparing for the celebration of the holy month of Ramadan, but they are facing an exponential increase in food prices, also due to the cutback in humanitarian aid, now focused on the crisis in Ukraine, something that several international organizations warned about. The high rate of unemployment in the region is aggravating the situation, reducing families' purchasing power. According to economic analyst Raed Hellis, the poverty rate in the Gaza Strip is over 50%, and 80% of its population lives on humanitarian aid alone.
The situation in the Gaza Strip is difficult for everyone because there is no income or work in the country, and the country today is suffering. The month of Ramadan is approaching, and prices are high. Everything's gone up, except for workers' wage. Salaries are low, and the situation in the country is bad.
We have more news coming up after a final short break. Please stay with us. Hi and welcome back. On Tuesday, Ghana's parliament approved a new electronic transaction tax, which the government says will help raise $900 million in much-needed revenue. This has sparked widespread popular criticism. The so-called e-levy will introduce a 1.5% tax on the electronic money transfers and transactions, which President Nana Akufo-Addo's government says will help address problems from unemployment to Ghana's high public debt load. This has sparked widespread popular criticism, and for many Ghanaians, the tax represents yet another burden, as they are already struggling with high living costs, heightened by soaring fuel prices due to the Ukrainian crisis. Lawmakers passed a law after the opposition minority walked out of the debate. Before they walked out of the debate, opposition lawmakers dismissed the new tax as unfair.
To understand that you are foregoing your submission.
The Democratic Republic of Congo accused Rwanda of backing rebels in the east of the country. The spokesman for the military governor of North Kivu province in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, General Sylvain Nking, accused the Rwanda Defense Force of supporting the incursions and attacks of the March 23 movement on positions of the army overnight Sunday to Monday. The attacks took place at Chansu and Runyoni in the Rutshuru area to support his accusations, and Nking said 2 Rwandan soldiers were arrested during the attacks.
The armed forces of the Democratic Republic of Congo detained 2 Rwandan soldiers. They are Wanted officers Abirimana John Pierre, serial number AP227779, and Private Uwajenesa Mudini John alias Uwaye.
United Nations Refugee Agency reported there is an urgent need for assistance for South Sudan due to the record floods ahead. In South Sudan, help is urgently needed ahead of the rainy season for the most vulnerable hit by flooding. The UN Refugee Agency warns that prolonged flooding and displacement in the country is expected to worsen when the wet season begins in May. Record rainfall in the past 3 years have flooded thousands of hectares of farmland and prevented people from cultivating, which worsened food security. Globally, floods and droughts are becoming more frequent and intense. Developing countries like South Sudan contribute the least to carbon emissions, but are disproportionately affected.
Communities struggling to cope, to mitigate, to resist the impact of climate change and extreme weather events. We need to advocate for development actors to provide support directly to the communities.
At the United Nations, a Commission on the Status of Women, CSW 66, adopted agreed conclusions on achieving gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls in the context of climate change, environmental and disaster risk reduction policies and programs on March 25, 2002. Regarding this, South African Ambassador Matu Joyini, who is the chair of the Commission's 66th session, briefed reporters on March 29th on the agreed conclusion.
The Commission on Status of Women has adopted agreed conclusion on gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls in the context of climate change. and environmental and disaster risk reduction policies and programs. So that has not been done before. So there's been specific and actionable measures and steps that have been agreed to, really that will give member states, but not only member states, I think world leaders, a blueprint on promoting the issues of women and girls in the space of climate change.
In Israel, at least 5 dead in shootings in different parts of eastern Tel Aviv. According to local media, 5 people died and several were injured as a result of 2 shootings in 2 areas of the town of Bnei Brak. A former prisoner from Jenin in the occupied Palestine, identified as 26-year-old Dia Hamrashe, a member of the Palestinian Al-Fatah movement, was blamed for the incident. The occupation authorities announced a state of emergency and a total curfew in the streets of Tel Aviv, as the suspect is still on the run.
Por agentes que patrullaban la zona, aunque no se reveló su identidad.
On March 29th, Cuba marked the 32nd anniversary of the beginning of the program of comprehensive medical attention to the children victims of the Chernobyl accident. The program involved free treatments of patients with ailments of different degrees of severity and has been followed by many from the fields of both the research and the media due to its high humanitarian value. Details in the following story from Havana with our correspondent Lisandra Andres.
The Cuban filmmaker and photographer Roberto Chile, one of the directors of the documentary Sasha, a Child of Chernobyl, together with journalist Maribel Acosta. They reconstruct from the present one of the longest medical programs in history. It is also Chile, the man behind the camera, and together with Fidel, who captured these images on March 29, 1990, when the first 139 Ukrainian children victims of the Chernobyl nuclear accident arrived in Cuba for free treatment.
It was a really touching moment. Phil seemed to have a certain fear that a child would fall. He touched the heads of some, made gestures to others, and we really felt very moved because we knew that there were going to be many more children, thousands of children who were going to come to Cuba to be saved, to be cured.
He tells us that this story was developed between Havana and Ukraine, an idea that was born from the Cuban office of the Resume of Latin America platform.
The gratitude is sincere, it is boundless. They really believe that without Cuba they wouldn't be what they are now. Without the Cuban support and solidarity and the humanism of our people, some of them won't be alive and others will have incurable disease for the rest of their lives.
More than 26,000 children, adolescents, and young people from Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine received medical treatment on the island for more than 2 decades, in a very complex economic context for the country.
We were in the middle of the special period, with the disintegration of the Soviet Union, and of course, this led us to adopt measures. But above all, there was something fundamental, which was the political will of the state and the people of Cuba to contribute with their support, with their efforts, with the means they had in their hands at that time, to the rehabilitation of those children who were affected by the Chernobyl catastrophe.
All the results that Cuba had been undertaking from the biotechnological point of view since the 80s were tested in them for the first time. Therefore, the melagening of Dr. Millares cow as a scientific discovery was applied in the children of Chernobyl with very good results for dead skin issues, which were the most serious ones, such as alopecia, vitiligo, and psoriasis. Interferons were tested on them with extraordinary results. That is to say, the biotechnological industry was also tested and took the challenge with the children of Chernobyl. 39-minute documentary brings to the present the testimonies of those who in one year or another were linked to the program almost a decade after its termination. And when today we are living one of the saddest events, which is this war between 2 countries that are brothers, whose Slavic origin is common, this story alone would be worthwhile to open the eyes of those who in this world ask for weapons and sell weapons to kill. Because without memory, there is no future. Without memory, there is no sustainability of any worthwhile human project.
For For 21 years, the program of attention to children victims of the Chernobyl nuclear accident has been extended in the Caribbean island, a program that has been considered by many one of the most beautiful stories of solidarity and an expression of the best potentialities that human beings have.
Lisandra Andrés, Telesur, La Habana, Cuba.
We've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at Tell Us Our English. You can also join us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For Tell Us Our English, I'm Dio Martin. Thanks for watching.